Now you may recall I was saying that I'm kind of concerned that this chiming movement will not fit in this case. Well, I might be able to make it work, but more likely than not I'm going to run into difficulties. In order to have the speaker where it is now, the space up here is just a little bit too much. In other words, the dial is not symmetrical. It's just not going to work, which is too bad. So I'm going to have to use this movement here. This is also a pendulum movement, and it will be much easier to mount in this case. It will look just as nice, it just won't chime. And I'll save this movement for a larger clock someday, but not today. So I think that's what I'm going to do.
Now, it was never my intention to cut exactly along those lines. I just drew that line around the dial so I'd have an idea of how big it was. Be easier to set up the bandsaw. If that shaft is 5/16 of an inch in diameter, I'm going to make the hole in the dial board just a smidgen bigger. I'll make it a 1/64 of an inch bigger.
That doesn't leave very much thread for the nut to catch on. Well, I can see I'm going to have a bit of a problem here, and the time to deal with it is now. So I'm going to have to try and make this a little thinner. Well, I'm sure you've heard me say this is not a thickness planer. However, I think this is just a little bit too short and too light to put through my thickness planer. So I'm going to use this anyway, and besides I'm only going to try and take it down maybe not even a 1/16 of an inch. Just enough so that those threads can catch better.
Now, I should have stopped here after this first pass. You're going to see why.
Well, now there's lots of thread there. But you know, I got a little bit greedy. And this is what happened to the other side. Not only that, it's kind of warped. I guess maybe that wasn't a good idea. So I'm going to have to make a new one. And I've just wasted about an hour here. But like I've said before, I got more time than money. I had decided to use my sled here. And the reason for that is because that other piece was so short. And there was just a little bit of a lip here that I thought it would catch in on, but it wasn't enough. And when I was doing the other side, it allowed it to slip off a little bit. In that case, it was raised up a little higher. When it went under the sanding drums, it sanded it off too much and generated heat. The heat warped it. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to take this one here, and before I actually cut it down to size, I'm going to pass it through just all by itself here, without the sled. And I'm not going to get greedy. We'll see what happens. I've got more of this plywood if I have to. I've given one pass on both sides. This used to be almost 1/4 of an inch thick. Now you can see it's not quite a 1/16 of an inch less, but it's less. Okay, I'm back to where I was an hour ago, roughly. Well, actually not that long. And I'm thinking if I don't use this washer, it might be okay.